guy.
George Howard Scub.
They put this guy away for a reason, right?
Is there anything that these people won't try to get you to believe?
And, we, the ones who lived through it, we thought it was done.
George Howard Scub, the Scranton Strangler.
Susan Lewis.
It could be
Toby Henderson.
Is the Scranton Strangler.
Who is the Scranton Strangler? Fans of the PBS documentary / reality show, The Office, An American Workplace, have become increasingly more intrigued with a local news story during the time the documentary was being filmed.
Yes, the series, which aired in 2012 on PBS and quickly syndicated across the country and even gained more traction on streaming platforms, shed light to what most of us in the Lackawanna County area lived through: the terror, trial, and aftermath of the Scranton Strangler.
The identity of the Strangler has gotten so popular over the last several years. Well, we, the ones who lived through it, we thought it was done.
Look, we caught the guy.
We felt safe for a while. After they caught that guy Scub.
But you see, a lot of us started questioning things that we started to see in the background of this documentary. I know I did.
It was so hard to relive the trauma. Seeing it brought up in that documentary over and over again.
Look, I love my city. Have we had some weirdos in the past? Sure. There was that serial flasher that made that documentary thing. There was traffic stops and domestic disputes. Same kind of things that happen in every city.
Well, the first time I heard about the Scranton Strangler would have been in early 2010. I told my friend I was going to head to the gym, and she was like, "Hey, be safe." And I gave her a weird look, and she was like, all those stranglings going on?
Well, I was running my construction company back then. Lots of late hours, lots of nights stuck in the office, sending invoices, running bids, all the stuff that comes with being an entrepreneur that they don't put on a poster. So I'm walking to my truck. It's 10:30, and I'm telling you, I saw this woman walking down the street, and she turns to the alley. And I'm thinking, well, if this is Manhattan or Philly, that would be kind of weird. But it's Scranton, what's the worst that can happen?
Well, the way I remember it, we got a call back in late January of 2010.
Well, I was walking down an alley to get to where I parked my car. I saw a man wearing a trench coat. My first thought was that he must have been waiting for someone or cosplaying or something, but I guess he was waiting for me.
So we got this call from dispatch saying to get down to Lackawanna and Mifflin. There had been a strangling.
I tried to get in my car, and as I got closer, I heard footsteps behind me. Started to panic and reach for my keys, but I fumbled them and dropped them, and I'm always doing that. I'm so clumsy. I reached down to pick them up, but I heard the footsteps right behind me. I looked in the reflection of my car windows, and that guy was right there. I shrieked, but he grabbed my neck and began to squeeze.
So I hear this shriek, and I spring into action, and, I'm thinking, well, somebody's trying to get their jollies off. Not in my city. So I grab my tire iron, and I run down the alley, and I turn to find this girl just laying there, looking lifeless.
You know what was always so strange about this whole Strangler madness? Was that was the only thing the sicko ever did. Every victim told the same story. He approached them in the dark. Well, he And then he'd let them go right before the point of no return. That's some sadistic stuff right there.
It all happened so fast. I was in shock, and I couldn't begin to explain what happened. Things went dark, and when I woke up, there was a man standing over me, asking me if I were okay. He had the police on the line, and they were there so fast.
Well, at first, I thought I just scared the dude away, you know? But it seems that was just his game the whole time.
I mean, sure, we treat some collapsed windpipes and whatnot, but what kind of psychological damage does knowing that that person is still out there, and maybe next time, he'll just finish the job?
There were curfews from then on. Like, we watched each other's backs. We even formed neighborhood watch groups, just trying to really protect each other. The police were so desperate.
You know, when they asked me to face Scub in court, it was one of the hardest things I ever had to do.
So we know the story, right? Blah, 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 strangling, yada, yada. Then boom, a huge break in the case. We got convictions and we got trials and we got lawyers and we got everything all settled. And then after the sentencing, it's just over.
Look, like I said, we got the guy. There was a big car chase and everything. Successfully apprehended, tried, and sentenced. Now he's serving his life in a county lockup. That is until people like you started poking your noses into things because of a stupid documentary. If you just leave the police work up to, I don't know, the police, I think the world would be much safer.
It's hard to convey my feelings. Like, I mustered everything up to make sure that Scub paid for what he did to me and all his other victims, just to find out that maybe he was innocent.
Right, we're all celebrating in the streets. Fast forward a few years, and my buddy asked me if I seen this documentary on PBS, and I said, "What am I, this 78-year-old grandma? Who's got time for PBS documentaries?"
I know it's called a documentary, but it always seems so surreal, sort of fake. Like, you know, when you're watching The Real Housewives and you get caught up in all this drama, even though it seems pretty scripted, that it's not real.
So I turned it on the next night, and as I'm watching it, I see Meredith on the show, and I went to high school with her kid, and I'm thinking, I know that woman. That's Miss Palmer.
It was kind of crazy seeing local places and local faces. These people kind of became like local stars. But then PBS sold the rights in the documentary all over the nation, making Scranton kind of well known all across the country. Scranton. It was really cool for a bit, like when I'd go traveling, people ask where you're from, and I'm like, oh, I'm from Scranton. And they'd be like, really? Do you know that documentary, like Michael Scott or Kevin? And the only person I really knew was Meredith, but not for reasons I want to talk about.
I mean, sure, this reality show had some over-the-top moments. I mean, what reality show doesn't? I mean, that's what reality shows do. They embellish to keep you watching, to keep you engaged, to get the prongs right in your mind, so you just have to watch that opium and get that fix over and over again. That's what reality shows do. But it wasn't until Netflix started airing this reality show, that I started watching it and starting noticing the ordinances and the nuances over and over again. There's something about these people's lives. You just get wrapped up in it,
Well, the dock was great for business. Everyone in the area was coming down to check out Scranton. I had so many projects going on at the time that I had to turn down work. It was going good.
Did I know any of the office folks? Well, I never watched any of that garbage, but yeah. Well, as the new guy, I had to work with a lot of the volunteer sheriffs. Well, Scroot was one of them for the longest time. Such an odd guy. But he really cared about the community, so figured he was harmless enough.
Sometimes there would be a lot of commotion going on, like at the grocery store or at the mall, because somebody from the office was there. There was a lot at the local pub, Poor Richard's. I would try to sneak in and get on camera, but you also don't know what they were doing. Was it like making of a murder?
Yeah, I kind of love the documentary. It was cool to see some local people talk about local things. There was always so much happening, but the stakes were always so low. It was kind of comforting in a sense. That all changed when they finally got to what they filmed in 2010.
This frame set me back 55 bones, but she decided to take her sweet time, so now I have to switch it with today's paper.
This move, he can't get you.
Well, I think that he could counter that move. The Scranton Strangler is a professional strangler.
Oh, please, I wish he'd come after me. I would be like...
Too late. If I was the real Scranton Strangler, you'd be so strangled by now.
911, hello, Scranton Strangler's in the house. Inside the house.
Grandpa, where were you the day the Scranton Strangler was caught?
Well, I was there, kiddo.
Let's just say I'll be up to my neck in jury duty.
That was the worst joke ever.
It was a little surreal, seeing stuff about the stranglings in the show. It really triggered some trauma. But at the same time, there's something oddly settling about seeing these snapshots in time. Like, I lived through an attack, and none of these people get anywhere close, but you can see it impacted them in several ways for several years. To know how everything ended up with justice being served, it's kind of a cathartic experience.
Yeah, that dock crew came sniffing around a time or two, mostly due to that Scroot fella, but we didn't give them the time of day. I don't think our tax dollars should be going towards cops becoming reality stars, so I just had to stonewall them for the most part. When they started asking questions about the Strangler case, that was even more bizarre. I remember asking them what their interest in this case was. Weren't they just filming an office? But we had to do that kind of stuff all the time. People were getting weird even before we apprehended Scub. I mean, there were vigilantes out there looking for the Strangler, neighborhood watches, all sorts of stuff out there.
But you see, a lot of us started questioning things that we started to see in the background of this documentary. I know I did. I started looking at these things and it started making me ask questions like timelines. I mean, the timelines don't add up.
People had gotten kind of weird about this whole thing in the last 5 years. Asking questions, analyzing that stupid documentary. It was Scub. It was Scub. Look, we caught the guy red-handed. Okay, I mean, not like that, but you know it's him. There was a mountain of evidence against him. Even strangled dudes in prison.
People say that it wasn't Scub. There's so many conspiracy theories out there. Like, I do think it's creepy to think that the Strangler could still be out there.
Look, I'm not saying that it's not Scub, but when you listen to these people, they got some pretty good points.
Who do I think the Strangler is? It's not Scub. I mean, it's clear from the very beginning. Scub, they're trying to set him up as the bad guy. I mean, look how they refer to Scub. They refer to him as George Howard Scub. 3 names. 3 names are associated with bad guys all the time. Let me prove my point. John Wayne Gacy. 3 names. Another one, Lee Harvey Oswald. All 3 names. George Howard Scub. All again and again and again. They're just reinforcing the bad guy narrative from day one.
All right, Jim, your quarterlies look very good. How are things going at the library?
I was recently a juror on the Scranton Strangler. A man's being put to death. I was part of the verdict, and I'm not so sure he's guilty anymore.
With recent doubts being cast about the guilty verdict against George Howard Scub, the Scranton Strangler, many citing mistrial concerns exposed in the American Workplace documentary, several grassroots efforts that began on social media sites like Reddit and Twitter, funded by crowdsourced sites like GoFundMe, now appear to have some legs, with Scub's lawyers claiming a mistrial.
Some major news with the Scranton Strangler trial today. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals has agreed to hear the case, making an exception that lower courts wouldn't allow.
Today marks the first day of freedom for George Scub, the vindicated man accused of committing a string of stranglings from 2010 to 2012. He's being released after the courts upheld the mistrial appeal. While experts say this doesn't clear Scub's name 100%, as the investigation to the Scranton Strangler is now reopened.
So, should be good to go.
Test. I don't know. I don't see a light or anything.
There's no light. It's fine. It should be working fine. Let's go ahead and get started. Just for my records, can you state your name?
Sure. It's George Howard Scub.
Really, I mean, if you really get down to it, everybody's a suspect. Jim, nice guy. Oh, he wouldn't do anything wrong. Really?